Vanakkam. Hello friends. As we start the second phase of our journey on Know Your Roots, exploring the antiquity of the Tamil civilization, we will be exploring the transition that happened from the Iron Age into early history period. In South India, Iron Age succeeded late Neolithic Age as there was no marked Copper or Bronze Age. Again, the nomenclature for these periods going by the metal that was predominantly used for producing the weapons of a largely hunter-gatherer population, also known as the Megalithic Age, referring to the extensive burials with the aid of which most of the story of this period, starting from around the beginning of the second millennium going up to the middle of 500 Common Era, where we have been exploring the shift from the hunter-gatherer into the agro-pastoral way of life, especially in the Tamil context, through the 5 landscapes of the Tamil region, Kurinji, Mullai, Marudam, Neidal and Palai. The early discovery of iron in South India that was used to produce the weapons of the hunter-gatherers and later the tools for agriculture, as evidenced in the megalithic burials at Adichanallur, Porundal and Kodumanal, and at some of the sites that are now in Karnataka and Andhra such as Brahmagiri or Bais. The settlements at Hirebenakal in Karnataka also showed evidence of societal formation by showing hierarchical settlements within a megalithic community. And the hierarchy was probably based on who controlled the iron ore production and distribution during the early trade networks. The increase in population putting the pressure on agricultural production, extensive forest lands were cleared to make way for agricultural fields, and other than using the river valleys, man learned to build irrigation tanks to capture the rainwater, as again discovered in many of the megalithic sites. Craft specialization, as found in the megalithic burials, jewelry made of pearls and gold and semi-precious stones, including that of lapis lazuli and carnelian, that were imported from Afghanistan and northern India. The large-scale manufacture of glass beads revealed the demand for such products in the fashion of a bygone era, where natural substances could not keep up with the demand, an indication of the increasing affluence of people involved in craft specialization, followed by extensive overseas trade that was conducted at that early age on a barter system. Increase in warfare and conflicts among neighboring Iron Age settlements, as evidenced by the increased presence of weaponry in the megalithic burials, as also walled settlements that were constructed around the communities that have been discovered at several sites in Andhra and Karnataka, a kind of protection probably against the cattle raids that were frequented between the neighboring clans, as is outlined in the Tolgapiyam and Sangam literary works. All this being evidence of emerging chiefdoms and organized societies. A population with a hierarchy that was now divided into hunter-gatherers, agriculturists, pastoralists, craftsmen, and a chieftain with his attendant martial class led to the emergence of a caste system that was based on occupation. Caste system in the south was not introduced by the influence of the incoming Indo-Aryans as was believed earlier, but emerged out of social reorientation towards the end of the Iron Age and beginning of early historic period. Coming to language, that important marker of evolution, as people started dispersing and settling in different regions, local dialects should have started forming, the Proto-Dravidian giving birth to daughter languages, and the incoming influx of people from northern country should have also contributed to the development of these regional dialects, and this was a two-way process, as is evidenced by the presence of Dravidian loan words in the Rig Veda of the north, as well as Indo-Aryan words in even the earliest extant Tamil literary works, namely the Sangam literature. The movement being predominantly for trade, as is evidenced by two important markers, one being that of pottery. We have already seen how the humble potsherds are an archaeologist's delight, as by nature clay pieces do not disintegrate and forever tell their stories from under the ground. Earliest pottery of South India being of the black and red ware kind, pottery from the upper stratification of layers in the megalithic sites have revealed northern black polished ware typical of the Gangetic regions. Another kind of pottery being the rouleted ware, which was earlier associated with overseas trade but subsequently is thought to have originated from the regions of Bengal. The second pointer being the introduction of brick architecture, as shown in the Kiradi excavations, extensive brick structures of superb quality bricks very similar to that of the Indus Valley civilization. We saw how South Indian architecture of earlier periods was predominantly wood based and hence deteriorated and decomposed with time, leaving absolutely no evidence behind for any of the megalithic settlements down south. Similarly, though Tamil country should have been home to an advanced civilization much earlier, no written evidence is found as the people had the habit of writing on palm leaf manuscripts, which again were lost in time to the termites. Quite frustrating, while the Indus Valley civilization left behind layers of settlements right from an early phase starting with Mehergarh from around 7000 BCE to Mecho Harappan between 3500 and 1700 BCE, and a late phase from 1700 BCE to the disappearance of the civilization itself by around the turn of the millennium BCE. So far, no such archaeological evidence has been found in the south to reveal a similar highly developed civilization like that of the Indus. We had explored in detail about the Dravidian connect with the Indus Valley civilization in several episodes, trying to reconstruct what remains till date a huge gap in the South Indian past. The undecipherable Indus script on the one hand and lack of written evidence on the other hand in the southern part of the peninsular India, except for the odd pottery graffiti appearing here and there, which we are now trying to analyze scientifically to establish the time factor in our desperate attempt to bridge the gap and shift back the date of early South Indian history. We saw nevertheless how many historians, right from Father Heras, claimed that the Indus Valley civilization should have been of a Dravidian origin, as it was definitely a pre-Vedic, pre-Indo-Aryan civilization, and how Indologists such as Asko Parpola have tried to decipher the seals themselves with the help of the Tamil language and cultural symbolisms. Well, history referring to that period in time from which written material is available, the earliest history of the south, which mentions the three great monarchs, the Cheras, the Cholas and the Pandyas, are found in the inscriptional records of King Ashoka, the great Mauryan emperor, dated to around the 3rd century BCE. While we will see the advent of these dynasties in detail later on, today the odd discoveries such as the pottery graffiti from Porundal, which has been dated to the 5th century BCE, though not enough to claim of an advanced civilization, is helping us date back the origin of history itself in the south. We also saw in detail about the prehistory of the south as well as proto-history, where written evidence is found in the written records of other civilizations referring to Tamil country. Probably proto-history of South India has not received the serious attention that it should in an attempt to bridge the gap. To give just one example as a sort of recap, in her book Vedic India as embodied principally in the Rig Veda, the Russian historian Zinoid A. Ragozin, the book itself published in the year 1895, well before the discovery of the Indus Valley civilization, she mentions how the muslin cloth is referred to by the name Sindhu in the clay tablets of the Sumerian civilization in Old Babylonia, and says, the name by which it is called from the country from which it was exported, it had to be of Dravidian origin, as they were the ones familiar with sea trade from long ago. She also mentions of the teak that was discovered in the Ur temple as having come from South India. Well, the long held notion of the North Indian as well as foreign scholars that civilization in the Indian subcontinent began with the arrival of the Indo-Aryans and the Vedic culture, and that prior to that India was a land of Dravidian barbarians, did take a beating with the discovery of the Indus Valley civilization itself. But prior to that, even in the south, the likes of Manonmaniyam Sundaram Pillai claimed in the late 19th century that historians who looked at recreating the past of India should stop searching in the Ganges and Indus alone and should search along the river valleys of the Vaigai and the Tamarabarani in the deep south. Today, the archaeological sites of Adithanallur, Keeladi, Alahankulam and the recently discovered Sivakalai all attest to the veracity of what Manonmaniyam Sundaram Pillai claimed. The irony is that while the antiquity of the Vedas themselves is accepted as somewhere around 1500 BCE plus or minus 300 years, while they were transmitted through oral tradition through generations, the academic world, which is willing to accept its antiquity based on linguistic and philological evidence defying written rules of history, the earliest available written manuscripts are traced to around 1000 CE, that is Common Era in Nepal, and about 1400 CE in India in Pune. A good 2 millennia later, no such concession is allowed when it comes to reconstructing Tamil antiquity. We saw while exploring Tamil linguistic history the marks of the deep antiquity of the Tamil language that has remained unchanged for over 2500 years, attested by our ability not only to read and understand the extant grammar work Tolkappiyam and the Sangam literature, but also to relish and relate to the context, which is possible only because of the cultural continuum. Now, this by itself should attest to the antiquity of the Tamil civilization and suffice to take its development to at least around 2000 years before the Common Era. Talking of cultural continuum, we also explored in detail the funerary rituals and practices and ancestral worship from the megalithic times that continue till the present, and also how some of these rituals later evolved into the rites and rituals followed in our temples. We learnt about the astronomical significance of some of the megaliths erected in places like Neelaskal, and about the spatial appropriation that happened where the sanctity attached to megalithic sites in the Deccan region resulted in Buddhist stupas being erected atop the sites, as well as how in Tamil country the Pallipadai shrines were incorporated into temples. We will continue with our exploration of the transition from the Iron Age to early historic period and how the chiefdoms gave way to the great monarchies later on in the following episodes to come. Thank you.